Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today on the show, we have Altelisha Taylor. She's a family medicine resident, and she wrote the Kevin MD article, 3 Ways the Wealthy Increase Their Net Worth. Altelisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and your journey to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, which is in the panhandle of Florida. I grew up there for the first 18 years of my life, did my undergrad at Duke University, go Blue Devils, where I majored in public policy, so had some writing experience there in undergrad. After I finished that, decided to work in health policy in DC, so I did that for a year at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, then got a master's in public health, and then decided to go to medical school, and I went back to my home state of Florida at the University of Florida for med school. And it was there that I fell in love with family medicine because I liked a little bit of everything and also liked sports medicine. And now I'm a resident in Atlanta in family medicine and then hoping to specialize in sports medicine.
Fantastic. Now, a lot of the articles that you've contributed to Kevin MD, they are personal finance articles. Now, what got you interested in personal finance and why did you decide to write about those?
Yeah, so my father is into business and finance, and so is my oldest brother. In fact, the majority of the people in my family are not doctors. They are in business and finance. And so I got an early start there. My father has a small business, also is an accountant slash auditor for the Department of Defense. And I think him teaching me a lot of things when I was younger is first what started my interest in personal finance. And then fun fact, when I was at Duke, there were a lot of people who were pre-med, but also a lot of people who were interested in finance. And I got sidetracked a little bit and almost considered a career on Wall Street. So there was, I think my junior year of undergrad, I was flying out to New York a lot. I was doing a lot of stuff at Barclays, Capital, Morgan and Stanley, Goldman and Sachs. And so that was kind of my second introduction, if you will, into personal finance. Decided that that wasn't the route that I wanted to go for a career, but always liked personal finance and investing. And then ironically enough, when I was in medical school and I realized I was actually going to go into family medicine, it's one of the lower paid specialties. And so I remember having this conversation with my father about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Why am I choosing a specialty that doesn't make as much as the others? And his advice to me was to choose something that you love and I can teach you how to invest. And so from that moment on, from his teachings and me doing a lot of research on my own, reading a bunch of books, listening to a lot of podcasts, I learned a lot myself, made some mistakes along the way, and thought, oh my goodness, I should share this information with other people. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying I had 3 kind of introductions into personal finance and really loved it and love to write about it.
So we always talk about this podcast about how physicians don't get a lot of personal finance training. Now you're a family medicine resident and you're obviously much closer to training than I am. What's the current state of personal finance education when it comes to medical students and residents?
I don't think much has changed. Obviously, I wasn't in medical school when you were, but I can tell you from my own personal experience at the University of Florida, I don't remember getting much education at all about personal finance. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 physicians. My 4th year of medical school came in and did like a lecture or 2 on some personal finance stuff, but that was about it. As a resident, I'm constantly getting emails from personal finance advisors. I'm not sure how they got my information, but I get a lot of emails from there. But other than that, I don't think there is a lot of education. In fact, one of the reasons why I decided to start my own blog, which is careermoneymoves.com, by the way. One of the reasons I decided to start that blog was because my friends kept asking me about personal finance. You know, how much should I save for retirement? Should I prioritize paying down debt or investing? Should I buy a house after residency? And I was answering those questions so frequently that I thought, oh my gosh, I should just write it out, put it on a website so they can access it at any point. And that kind of jump-started me, sharing that information with other people. But in regards to knowledge that I gained from other people in medical school, I don't think it was much.
You and I on social media, we talked to a lot of physicians who are interested in personal finance, but let's say out of our social media circles, your colleagues and during training in medical school and residency, was there a lot of interest from the medical side in personal finance?
Most people were in, I would say, maybe 2 or 3 different camps. There were some people like me who were interested in finance, but maybe they just maybe not as interested to the point where they wanted to write a blog, but interested in, they wanted to learn about it. And so there were people in that camp. And not to stereotype, but I think that for the most part, those are the people who really didn't come from a long line of physicians and wanted to make sure that they had some way to pay off their student loans and create wealth for their families, because that wasn't something that they had, but was something that they definitely wanted. And then there were the people who didn't really care. They thought, oh, I'm in medicine, I know I'll get paid a lot, I'm not really worried about money. At some point in the future, I'll worry about it, or I'll hire somebody. But they weren't really as interested in. So I tend to find that most people tend to be in one of those two different camps. The people that I talk to personally, maybe, some of my colleagues and friends, I don't think anyone's as interested in it as I am, but when we have these conversations, it's something that they're willing to listen to. And so I think, if we did teach a little bit more about it in residency and in medical school, I think more people would gain that knowledge and would be happy to learn about it.
So let's now transition into the Kevin MD article. We're going to talk about 3 ways the wealthy increase their net worth. Now, for those who haven't read the article, can you walk my audience through it and maybe share the story of why you decided to write it?
As a resident who works a lot and doesn't get paid a lot, one of the things that I'm really interested in is making sure that I'm doing things to increase my net worth and create wealth for my family, and making sure that my friends also have those same tools. And as someone who isn't wealthy currently, I'm always trying to think about what are things that I can do, what are things that my friends can do to put us in a good position so that once we finish residency and fellowship and all the other training, we're in a good position. And so I actually wrote 2 versions of this article. The more recent one was, 3 ways that I could increase my own net worth. And I talked about those 3 ways, one being investing into retirement accounts, paying down debt early and saving a lot of money. And then the other article that I wrote was kind of 3 ways that the rich get richer. And I talked about how they create businesses, how they find ways to lower their taxes, and how they invest in things like real estate and in the stock market. And I can kind of break down both of those. And so for me personally, investing in retirement accounts, I think is extremely important. It's one of those things that you can do even as a resident or someone who makes a median salary, to kind of set yourself up for the future. So for me, it's investing into my job's 403B, which, some people have a 401k, and it's putting at least, 10% of my pre-tax income into that account. It's a way for me to start investing, and it's also a way for me to lower my taxes. And as someone who has student loans, it also lowers my student loan payment. And so for me, that's kind of a no-brainer. The second thing that I do is really prioritize paying off debt. Unfortunately, before I became very passionate about personal finance, I made a lot of mistakes. When I was a postgraduate student who had just graduated from Duke, and I moved to DC, I moved to a very expensive city. I didn't make a lot of money, and I used credit cards to pay for a lot of things. So 3 very big mistakes. And so I say all of that to say that when I entered medical school and in residency, I had a lot of credit card debt. And one of the things that I made a point to do when I started residency was to pay off my credit card debt. And that has just made a huge difference. And then the third thing was saving a lot of money on top of investing into pre-tax retirement accounts, on top of paying down debt. I think the key to building wealth is really about your savings rate. Is, are you able to live below your means? Are you able to really live on a budget and be self-disciplined enough to not buy everything that you see everybody else having? And so for me, it's about saving, 20% of my income, whether it's in retirement accounts, whether it's in cash or a Roth IRA. It's making sure that I'm saving a good amount of money. And so that's kind of that article. Those are some things that I'm doing personally. And I'll pause here because I realize I've just said a lot.
Now, for residents and young physicians, sometimes the amount of debt they have is daunting, right? They graduate at $200,000 to $300,000 of debt, and they have car payments, they have mortgages, and it could be overwhelming in terms of where to start. Now, what would you say is the number 1 tip in terms of where they should start paying off debt?
Yeah, so I would start with any credit card debt, especially credit card debt that has an interest rate above 8 or 9%. I think the quicker you can pay down that debt, the less money you're going to be spending in interest payments, and the more cash that you're going to be able to leave in your pocket each month once that debt is paid off. And so for me, that was my first step, was paying down credit card debt. Once that was done, I think it depends on the interest rates of the other debt that you have. For me, it was, having a car loan and realizing that I wanted to prioritize paying that off, as well as student loans, which I am just like the average medical student in that I graduated medical school with a ton of student loans. And so, for me, I prioritize paying off my car because I'm enrolled in public service loan forgiveness. And so I'm planning to get my student loan debt forgiven. And so I prioritize kind of paying off other kinds of debt. And so to make a long story short, I would say prioritize paying off credit card debt, prioritize paying off any car loans or mortgages, and make sure that you're in some sort of loan forgiveness program if that's the route that you plan to pursue to get your student loans paid off.
Now, for those residents who are just too busy practicing medicine and they may not have the personal finance interest or knowledge to do everything that you're saying, what's your thoughts about outsourcing it to a financial advisor?
Yeah, so I have a love-hate relationship with financial advisors. I feel like they're helpful. So anything that you don't know, you should, in my personal opinion, reach out and get that knowledge or see if you can get someone to help you with that. And so in that respect, I think that they're great. If you can find someone to help you in the areas where you are weak, I think that is a great thing. On the flip side, I find that some financial advisors tend to take advantage of doctors and residents specifically. And so it's really being careful to making sure that, you're asking the right questions of your financial advisor. I know the White Coat Investor, Dr. Jim Daly, talks a lot about making sure that you know how your financial advisor is getting paid, making sure that they're not overcharging for advice. The second thing is making sure that they're actually giving you good advice, making sure that they're encouraging you to, invest into pre-tax retirement accounts, getting term life insurance and disability insurance, and those kinds of things. So for me, financial advisors are okay. It's just all about asking the right questions and making sure that you're getting charged a good rate for the advice that you're getting.
And where can residents and young physicians find those questions? You mentioned Jim Daly and the White Coat Investor. Just off the top of your head, what are some of the specific questions that residents should be asking of these financial advisors?
Yeah. So one of the top questions I would think is ensuring that they are asking you what's important for you.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that you know what are your top priorities that you're trying to get out of this financial advisor. Is your priority to making sure that you pay off debt as quickly as possible? Is your priority ensuring that you build wealth as quickly as possible? Is your priority saving up for a down payment on a home? What is your personal priority? Another thing is asking the advisor how much they get paid or how they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a flat rate? Is it an hourly rate? Is it a percentage under management? So making sure that you know how your financial advisor is getting paid so you can delineate whether or not you're getting charged a fair price. Another thing is to ask their opinion on life insurance, ask their opinion on disability insurance. Some of the red flags that I've seen is having financial advisors try to sell me whole life insurance, which I don't think residents need. I don't think a lot of physicians need in general. And ensuring that your financial advisor is helping you get disability insurance, which is something I think every physician needs, every person needs, is some sort of disability insurance. And so those are some questions off the top of my head. And you've just given me a great idea for another finance article. And so look out for a blog from me soon, spelling this out a little bit clearer.
We're talking to Altelisha Taylor. She's a family medicine resident, and she wrote the Kevin MD article, 3 Ways the Wealthy Increase Their Net Worth. Altelisha, what's the number one mistake that you see residents and young physicians make from a personal finance standpoint?
One is getting into too much debt, whether it's credit card debts, expensive cars, or expensive mortgages. Goodness, the other thing is just not prioritizing paying off the debt soon enough. And the third thing would be upgrading their lifestyles too quickly. There's a lot of delayed gratification in medicine. We've gone to school for a gazillion amount of years, spent the majority of our 20s and sometimes our early 30s in school. We've been students, we've been residents, fellows. And so it takes a lot of delayed gratification because oftentimes we look around and we compare ourselves to our peers who are not in medicine, who are buying homes, getting married, going on elaborate vacations. And we want those things too. And so I think it takes a lot of self-discipline to hold back a little bit and to build wealth and make sure that you're paying down debt before you upgrade your lifestyle.
And my final question, what is your take-home message that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
Yes, learn about personal finance. That is my take home message. I think that learning about personal finance and trying to build wealth will set you up tremendously in your life. Building your net worth and having wealth gives you options. It gives you the chance to say, you know what, I want to take a different job. I want to work a little bit less. I want to go on a nice vacation with my family. And I think those options become available to you whenever you are able to build wealth. And the key to doing that is learning about personal finance. So that is my take home message.
And how can people find you?
They can find me on my blog, careermoneymoves.com. I'm also on Instagram, Career Money Moves, and on Instagram, my personal Instagram account, which is Dr. Lisha Taylor. So that is where they can find me.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.